been about 11 months since the iPhone 15 Pro came out. Now is probably a good time to talk about how it's been, but I don't want to do that inside, so let's get outside. Okay, let's talk about cameras, since this is usually what determines which iPhone I use. The camera on the 14 Pro feels very similar to the 15 Pro, which makes sense, because there wasn't any major change between those two cameras. They both use a 48 megapixel main camera and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide and telephoto. So the camera on the 15 Pro is great. It keeps that same contrasty look that we got when we moved to the 13 series. There is one thing I struggle with though, and that's getting used to the focal distance of that 48 megapixel sensor. I'll show you what I mean with a can from today's video sponsor. I'm just kidding. Not a sponsor, but we're gonna use this can. When I wanna take a picture of something close to the camera, the 14 and 15 Pro switch to the ultra-wide lens, which has a lower megapixel count. So I need to give it a second to show the macro lens, and then bump it back to the main lens. All that to say, the iPhone has an amazing camera, but nothing out of it makes me say, damn, that's the Glenmore Dam. Well, let's go up there. iPhone performance is generally good. They always say it's whatever percent better, which usually just means it feels the same as it did before. I've been able to edit videos no problem. Honestly, I think my biggest performance issue just comes down to how the screen dims in the summer. I mean, it's 2024. Shouldn't we have figured this out? Here's the last thing I'll say about performance. You have a high refresh rate, so I feel like some of it is perception. If you turn that feature off, it honestly just kind of feels like every other 15 series. Food for thought, right? Speaking of food.
Hello, how can I help you?
Hi there, can I get a honey cruller donut? I probably shouldn't eat this right now, but it's so good. Morning. Before we get going, let's quickly talk about USB-C. This hasn't really affected me in too many ways, since I don't transfer files from my phone to my computer, I just airdrop them. Charging, I charge overnight, so any benefits from charging don't really affect me there. But here's where it kind of does affect me, is that now, in a couple places, but specifically the car, I have multiple cables because my wife is still using an iPhone with Lightning, and I am obviously using the one with USB-C. So maybe one day we'll get her moved up, but no rush. So speaking of build, I do like the lighter weight of the titanium iPhone. Though without a case, I find that fingerprints look kind of weird on the black titanium, which kind of makes me wish I'd gone for the natural finish. I did try going caseless, but I got my phone scratched up in less than an hour. That's again a situation where I wish I had the natural finish, because it wouldn't show scratches as bad. I did find with the matte back that it didn't show fingerprints, but it also felt pretty slippery. I haven't broken anything on the phone, but I've also been using cases and screen protectors the entire time. So what I would say is I've been pretty happy with the builds, and this is where I think Apple's made the biggest jump. Yeah, it's the one in the middle. It's from the '88 Olympic Games. These other two on the right and the left are smaller, so yeah, the one in the middle is the biggest jump. The action button was the right move. It's much better than having a toggle switch. I've had a pretty mixed experience with it, and it's probably taken me about 6 to 8 months just to get used to using it. It still doesn't feel the most intuitive, but that's probably down to the fact that I'm right-handed, so I just want the button by my thumb where it's easy to get. I started using it to turn on my flashlight, but I've landed on using it to open my camera instead. Alright, so let's talk battery. At the time of shooting this, my battery's at 90% with 329 charge cycles. It feels like it's gone down kind of quick, which, if I remember correctly, is kind of how it went with the 14 Pro last year. I have a pretty high screen time. I'm generally just watching YouTube all day, so average is probably about 7 hours a day. So I mean, if my battery's lower, then I get it. But for the average person, I'd hope that's not the case. But from what I've seen around the internet, it seems like that's kind of what's happening. As far as my battery life, I charge it twice a day, and I have it plugged in while I'm driving using Apple CarPlay. Here's hoping we move to a different battery technology, though with that I'm sure Apple will just slim down the phone and give you the exact same battery life. But we'll see. So let's answer the big question. Should you upgrade or hang on to your phone? I think if you have an iPhone 12 series or older, then now's a good time to upgrade. But if you've got a 13 Pro or newer, then I would just keep using that phone, unless Apple introduces some crazy new feature. Personally, I'll be upgrading because that's just part of the content creation game. Though if I wasn't in that game, I would probably hold off. But I've been saying that for several years now. I think Apple bringing RCS to the iPhone will make people a little more comfortable with the idea of switching to an Android phone and enjoying that more affordable landscape. And if that's the future we're heading towards, where Apple and Android phones play a little more friendly with each other, then I'm a big fan.